Hi folks, BrickSidious here, back with another LEGO Star Wars video. I'll be comparing the two UCS scale Slave Ones, or Fire Spray, whatever you call them, bounty hunter ships. So the one on the left, of course, is Boba Fett's Slave One from 2015, set 75060, about 2,000 pieces, and sold for $200, which was the standard UCS price at the time, except for the giant sets like Millennium Falcon. Most of the UCS sets were 200 or so. This is a fan favorite, everyone really loves the set. I think the resale value shows that. And the minifigure at the time was really good for a UCS set, printed arms and the cape, and Boba Fett fans, that's probably the best minifigure out there. And at the time, there were a lot of cool movement features with this ship. We've had smaller play scale Slave Ones, but to see it at UCS size was pretty impressive. Yeah, the cockpit. I don't know if this one was meant to be minifigure scale or slightly bigger. You've probably seen like the Snow Speeder, X-Wing, etc. They're meant for like a pilot who would be larger than a minifigure. I'm not sure about this set though. In the movies, of course, you kind of see Boba flying the ship as like it's a single seater. One thing I regret, or it's disappointing, that LEGO didn't really do much interior in UCS sets at the time, but it would have been cool to have like a storage area for the carbonite victims who got captured by Boba. And then some of the play scale Slave Ones also have torpedo or missile launchers, about around this section. It would have been nice to have, hatches with those projectiles to come out. And the kind of beat up nature of the ship and the color scheme, very classic original trilogy Star Wars. And then the underside, the level of detail here is awesome. Oops, looks like I lost a light here. I will add one later from my spares. And I like the blue thruster color, like the classic Star Destroyers and whatnot. So I built this set kind of when it came out around 2015, so I totally forget the build experience. But I think it's cool how it has a lot of curves. It's not so angular like the Rebel ships or a Star Destroyer. And the stand was pretty unique for its time. One, the ship's orientation is very unusual, and the stand made it work. All right, so on to the sister ship from this year, 2025, the 75409 Fire Spray Jango Fett Slave One version, what have you. This sells for $300, so 50% higher than the Boba Slave One. But given, I guess it's 10 years difference with inflation, the price difference wouldn't be that much. The interesting thing is the Jango Slave One is around 3,000 pieces, so 50% more pieces. And I can definitely attest to that. Like, I know LEGO is getting into the habit of having a bunch of really small elements now. I don't know if it's deliberate, or like people say online, oh, it's to inflate the piece count. Like, I don't think it's so scheming like that. It's just they really want to add like a bunch of detail and complexity, and sometimes I think they go overboard. Yeah, a bunch of 1x1 or 2x1 elements in this build, especially the guts and stuff, I guess to provide the scaffolding and the structure to make these angles just right and fill in all the gaps and stuff. I appreciate the effort, but it's, in my opinion, it wasn't that fun to build, so tedious. Though some areas you can tell the detail improvements ring true, like this joint where the wing or whatever you call this section connects to the main fuselage. It has a lot more detail, like mechanical looking components than the original Boba version, which basically has nothing. And what's interesting, the Boba slave one, used a lot of these like gradual sloping quarter circle elements, kind of like I think they were also used in Jabba's palace or those type of builds. Whereas the Jango one, it's steeper sloped elements and some kind of new elements that I'd never seen before. So it gives it more of like a round, like an egg look. Kind of reminds you of those like alien face hugger eggs as well. And it just, I prefer the Boba shape. I mean, it's kind of different, right? It's supposedly the same ship, but original trilogy, grungy, industrial, 1970s and 80s, and then the Clone Wars, like the prequels, which is like more, CG, cleaner, an older time in the galaxy where things were cleaner and sleeker. So, I mean, I understand, but it just looked, I don't know, something about the look, I'm not a huge fan of it. And then the cockpit, this one is minifigure scale, so it's strange, there's like 5 seats total. I don't know, is that canon? Like you could really fit that many passengers in here? And again, unfortunately, no cargo bay for carbonite prisoners. Although here, I guess, is this supposed to be like a missile launcher or something? They could have done a little more with that. The stand is different than the Boba version. I guess because the design, they chose different anchor points, but here you can see, I guess, I forget the prequel movies, but maybe the thrusters are now yellow, and then you have this like gravity bomb or that big weapon that Jango detonated to try to kill Obi-Wan, and it made that big blue disc of lasers. So that thing pops out, which is kind of cool. Otherwise, yeah, I kind of think I prefer the Boba Fett underside. It looked a little more industrial. So there you have it, kind of the comparison there, like another 1,000 pieces for Jango's ship. Was it worth it? Did it greatly improve the display look and whatnot? I think they roughly have the same amount of stickers. I didn't think that was a big deal. But the shape of Jango's ship, the difference there, and maybe filling in some gaps, adding some detail in here or there. I think in general, I still prefer the Boba version. Though I'm not disappointed with the Jango ship. I think it's pretty good, but like I'd say recent UCS sets where they really made the piece count, and they were able to make great improvements was like the TIE Interceptor. Of course, the first TIE Interceptor was like one of the first UCS sets, so it was very primitive. But the new TIE Interceptor is just awesome. They really got the spherical pod cockpit well, and with the details there, and used different shaped elements to close a lot of gaps. It's just a beautiful looking set. So I think with the Jango ship here, they had less opportunity to make such improvements, or you can't really notice it because the hull is just these large slope pieces that are not much better, or in some cases they're the same as the older Boba ship. So I like I said, about neutral on it, not really impressed, not disappointed, but there you have it, and hope you like this comparison. I will see you next time, and may the Force be with you.